Good Monday evening. I'm Chief Meteorologist Emily Walls, and everybody's still talking about it. The air quality out there again today. It was enough to where a lot of us were able to notice that the air quality was a little poorer than usual, and that's because, of course, of the wildfire smoke that we've been dealing with. But fortunately, we've really started to see some improvements in comparison to how we spent this past weekend. For those of you in the Chicagoland area, if you were out and about over the weekend, of course, this past weekend was Lollapalooza weekend as well. We had hundreds of thousands of people that were out and about this weekend, unfortunately dealing with unhealthy air quality. But again, brief improvements today, although we could be potentially dealing with this getting a little bit thicker going into tomorrow. So we're going to talk about that. And then also, we have another major warm up that's in store for us here across the Chicagoland area. For those of you that were thinking we're done with the 90s, we're not. Don't forget, we still have this whole month of August ahead of us, and we have another round of 90s that are going to be coming our way by late this week. And then finally, in this segment here, we're going to be checking in on the tropics because we have the newly formed tropical storm Dexter to tell you about, and then another system that could potentially be developing in the Atlantic late this week. So first and foremost, let's talk about the air quality. So all locations that you see here that are highlighted in this orange shading, these are air quality alerts, and all of them are in effect because of that wildfire smoke that's blanketing the area. And most of that, if not just about all of it at the current moment, is actually coming from the wildfires taking place in Canada. It's just blanketing the upper Midwest all the way out toward the Northeast. You'll notice here on our air quality map, any location that you see showing up in orange or red, that's where we're seeing unhealthy levels of that particulate matter in the air. So breaking this down on what this map means to us, if you find yourself not in any color, that's a wonderful thing because that's meaning that you have pretty good air quality. But notice where we have some of those reds, the red shading, the yellows, the oranges, that's where we're starting to see those higher levels of particulate matter that's in the air, which of course can be an irritant to our lungs that can actually get into our bloodstream. And for those of you that are sensitive to poor air quality, say you have asthma or other underlying issues, you could definitely be feeling the health effects associated with that as well. Zooming things in specifically to the Chicagoland area, you'll notice from a lot of locations near and north of I-80, we're highlighted in this moderate category. So what does that even mean? Typically, when you're in that moderate category, you have an AQI that is still less than 100. And your AQI is your air quality index. And that takes into account a bunch of different factors. But in this particular scenario, what we're concerned about is that particulate matter, all of that smoke that's in the air. And whenever you're in the moderate category, it typically means that it's considered to be acceptable for most individuals. But for those of you that are really, really sensitive to air pollution, I'm sure you're still feeling those effects, but notice the farther north that you go, the air quality really takes a hit. So where you see that sensitive area, so all of the orange on this map is representing air that's unhealthy for sensitive groups. And then of course we have our unhealthy air that's near Green Bay and then over into portions of northern Michigan, places like Petoskey, dealing with some of that unhealthy air quality. Now here at home, we've had a decent break from the poor air quality today. We still noticed it enough. We had that haze, those kind of like white milky skies, as we like to say whenever we're talking about smoke in the air. That's what it looks like. We were dealing with that today, but tomorrow it could potentially become a little bit denser. So for that reason, we do have an air quality alert that is going to be going into effect at midnight, lasting through the day tomorrow. For those of you that are in Lake County, Indiana, Porter, Newton, and Jasper counties, that's where we have that air quality alert that's going to be in effect all day Tuesday. So Futurecast smoke, this here is a product showing you where the densest smoke is expected to be. So as I set this in motion, what I want you to pay attention to is you see that band of red going through Canada and then kind of beelining it over toward Maine. That's the densest smoke. So this is where we expect the heaviest smoke, the worst air quality to be tonight and into tomorrow. But if you focus in on the Great Lakes region, the Chicagoland area, as I set this in motion, you'll notice that there's really not expected to be a ton of changes, although occasionally we're seeing these brighter shades of yellow showing up over the Chicagoland area. So that's the area of denser smoke that could potentially be working its way overhead tomorrow. That's why we have that air quality alert that's going into effect for portions of northwest Indiana, because we could be seeing some of that particulate matter working its way down to the surface, once again leading to poor air quality tomorrow. Now, speaking of fires, all of the smoke that we're dealing with here in the upper Midwest, the Great Lakes region, the Northeast, A lot of that's all associated with the wildfires ongoing in Canada. But there's several really, really large wildfires that are taking place right here in the U.S. And if we kind of hone things in here into California, there's a very large fire that broke out just a couple days ago, but it's already up to 65,000 acres, and it's only about 3 to 5% contained at this hour. So at last check, the Gifford Fire, this is in the mountainous region just east of Santa Maria here. Again, 65,000 acres. And if you equate that into square miles, because I think for a lot of us that's an easier number to consume, the square mileage of this is roughly about 101 square miles. And if you compare that to something that we're familiar with, the city of Chicago is a little over 200 square miles. So this area that you see burning in California, this is actually about half the size of the city of Chicago. So there's a lot of fire ongoing right now. Again, only 3 to 5% contained. And unfortunately, based on the weather pattern that I think we're going to have here in the next couple of days, I really wouldn't be surprised if a lot of the smoke associated with the fires that are ongoing in the southwestern U.S. start to try and work their way off toward the northeast as well. Because take a look at the satellite and radar. The placement of that high pressure system, that low pressure system, it may channel some of that smoke in the atmosphere in our direction. So that's something that we're still going to have to track pretty closely here, even as our weather pattern begins to change later this week and the Canadian wildfire smoke moves out of here. We could very well have some more smoke moving overhead later this week from the southwestern U.S. So the satellite and radar, let's talk about our current setup, what we have going on. It's been a quiet couple of days outside of the poor air quality, right? We've had a lot of sunshine. It's been very pleasant as far as temperatures are concerned. And you'll notice that we really don't have any systems overhead the Great Lakes region, and it's going to stay that way for a couple of days. If we zoom things in a little ways, we have had a couple spotty showers and thunderstorms try to fire up today, and a few of those did kind of skirt right through southern LaSalle County near Streeter, but those are already beginning to die out. So we're losing the heating of the day, and that often happens in these setups. So typically what you need to sustain a shower or a thunderstorm is you have the heat. It's called diurnal heating. We get that during the day. That means heat from the sunlight heats the earth, and then from that you can gain a little bit of instability enough to spark up some showers and thunderstorms. And we had that previously today, but of course now that we're getting to around the time of sunset, we're losing that diurnal heating. So a lot of the showers and thunderstorms that fired up previously, they're going to die out and come to an end. So the rest of this evening and tonight, it does look like it's going to be fairly quiet. But for those of you wondering, okay, well, when's our next best chance of rain? It's not going to be for a while. And we could really use the rain across the region. Unfortunately, a large portion of Chicagoland is still considered to be in a moderate drought. And the next chance of rain is going to be tomorrow. But you'll notice here on this graph, it's only about 20%. So just isolated showers, maybe a rumble of thunder tomorrow. Most areas are going to end up staying dry. And then the rest of this work week, we stay dry until Saturday night into Sunday, when we could finally start to see a better chance of showers and thunderstorms. But your drought monitor here, all locations that you see highlighted in tan, which includes a lot of the Chicago metro, but in the city of Chicago, you can see that we're kind of highlighted in that yellow shading there. That's abnormally dry conditions. So the worst of the drought in our area is for all locations that you see here that are highlighted in tan. But again, we still could really use the rain. No meaningful rainfall is in our forecast until sometime over this upcoming weekend, likely Sunday into Monday. Now, the next big weather story that we're dealing with here locally is, yes, we've had a really nice break from the extreme heat, but it's coming on back. Is it going to be quite as extreme as the last heat wave we had? No, but I do think that we will have another heat wave developing late this week. Thursday, Friday, Saturday, we're expected to be in the 90s. The humidity, that's going to be on the rise each day. So I think the most uncomfortable day for us is going to be coming our way on Saturday, when highs are expected to reach into the mid 90s. So once you tack on dew point temperatures that are likely going to be around 70, if not in the low 70s, we very well could be dealing with a heat index value that's right around 100. So that's going to be what we're tracking going into this upcoming weekend. Looking beyond this weekend, this is your temperature outlook from the 10th through the 14th. We're still strongly favored to see above average conditions, and that doesn't change going into the middle portion to the later portion of this month, all the way through the 18th of August. We are expected to likely see above average conditions. So if you're hoping for a hot end to your summer, I think we're going to get that. Meteorological summer does come to an end at the end of August, and then we enter into meteorological fall in September. but it does appear like we're going to round out this season likely warmer than average throughout the month of August. So that's going to be something to track. All right, coming up after this very short break, we are going to be checking in with the tropics. We have a tropical storm to tell you about that could be impacting portions of the East Coast. Those details in 2 minutes. Welcome back. Talking about the newly developed tropical storm Dexter. This formed into a tropical storm Sunday night and is now fortunately moving away from the east coast of the United States, but it's still going to be bringing in at least some impacts, mainly in the form of the threat of rip currents associated with the strong winds that are now offshore. So right now, Tropical Storm Dexter is located several hundred miles east of the coast, but it has 45-mile-per-hour sustained winds. We have wind gusts as high as about 60 miles per hour, and it is moving away from us, so northeasterly at about 15 miles per hour. Where is it headed? Well, it's going to stay out to sea. So this is wonderful news, and it's likely going to maintain tropical storm strength all the way through about Thursday, if not into Friday. So right now, the atmosphere that we have over the Atlantic and in the Atlantic, it is conducive of maintaining that storm strength. And we're also watching another potential storm that could be developing late this week. So if I slide things way out here, you see this really large area of orange. So this information is coming from the National Hurricane Center, and the probability of the next developing storm coming off of the coast of Africa there is about 50%. So we're kind of in that medium range, that medium threat range, where we could be seeing some gradual development over the next couple of days. And if that does happen, we could very well see a tropical depression developing by late this week. So this area that you see shaded here in orange, that's really going to be something to watch. And if this does end up turning into something, if it becomes a named storm, our next named storm up is Aaron. So we would have Tropical Storm Aaron if this does indeed form into that late this week. It'll be something to watch in the Atlantic. Here at home, 67 degrees tonight. It's going to be quiet tonight. We've had a couple of those stray showers, mainly near Streeter and south of there in LaSalle County. Everywhere else, it's been staying dry. And your forecast high temperatures for tomorrow, slightly cooler at the lakefront, especially during the afternoon, as we'll have some of that onshore flow. But otherwise, a beautiful day. We're expected to be in the 80s, and then we're in the upper 80s again on Wednesday. By Thursday, we're in the 90s. But again, it gets even hotter going into the weekend. Those details and more in your full 7-day forecast coming up on the news at 9.